You know, when you open up the book of Deuteronomy, it can feel, well, a little intimidating. It seems like a huge list of ancient laws. But what if I told you that buried right there in the opening chapters is a secret? A secret about a very specific piece of land. A secret that, honestly, changes how you read everything that follows. So, let's unlock it together.
I want to start with a question, just to frame this whole thing. What if the most important character in a story wasn't a person, but a place? Sounds kind of weird, right? But for the book of Deuteronomy, geography isn't just a backdrop. It's not just the setting. It's pretty much the whole point of the story. All right, so to really get this, we have to try and see the ancient world through their eyes. And for them, the world was basically split into two totally different kinds of places. You had lands built around giant rivers, and you had lands defined by rugged mountains. And just look at the difference here. I mean, it is stark. On one side, you've got these powerhouse empires like Egypt and Mesopotamia, right? They've got the Nile, the Euphrates, fertile soil, easy transportation. Their geography was literally perfect for building massive, unified empires that were built to go out and conquer the world. But then you have this other place, this land between. It has no major river, it's a nightmare to farm, and the mountains actually keep people divided. This place was just not designed for empire building. So you're probably asking, why would anyone even want this difficult chunk of land? Well, it turns out, this place that seems like it's at a huge disadvantage has a hidden secret, a feature that makes it one of the most strategic, most important locations on the planet. And here's the secret, the key to the whole thing. The land wasn't valuable for its own resources, for what it had. Its true value was in its location. It's valuable because of what passed through it. It was the central hub, the meeting point for pretty much all the major trade routes of the ancient world. Think of it like this. The big players, Egypt and Mesopotamia, they were like the ancient versions of today's economic superpowers, and they had to trade with each other. And wouldn't you know it, every single major superhighway, whether by land or by sea, cut right through this one central piece of real estate. So the people who lived here, they weren't destined to go out and conquer the world. Instead, the world was destined to come to them. Okay, and this is where the Israelites finally walk onto the stage. They've been in the wilderness for decades, and they are standing right on the border of this incredible, strategic land. But they have a history of doubt, a history of failure, and it's all about to come to a head.
Moses starts by reminding them of what happened to their parents' generation. Remember? They sent 12 spies to check out the land, and the report that came back was fantastic. The spies said it is a good land. Now that word good is so important. It's chosen very carefully to echo the creation story in Genesis. The message is clear. This place is supposed to be like a new Garden of Eden.
But despite that glowing report, the unthinkable happened. The people refused. They got right to the edge of their destiny. They looked at this good land, and they said, nope. It was their single greatest moment of failure.
So why? Why would they do that? Well, because they told themselves a completely different story. They saw the big, fortified cities, they heard about the tall inhabitants, and they spun this whole narrative out of pure fear. They actually convinced themselves that God didn't love them, that He hated them, and had led them all this way just to have them wiped out. They chose to believe a story that went against everything they had ever experienced. So now, standing on that same border with the next generation, Moses retells this story of failure. But then he does something absolutely brilliant. He fights back against their fear-based story with the true story, the one based on what they had all actually seen God do with their own eyes.
Moses gives them two incredibly powerful images to hold on to. First, God is your warrior. He's the one who goes ahead of you and fights for you, just like He did against the entire Egyptian army. And second, God is your parent. He's the one who carried you through that brutal wilderness, just like a father carries his own son. This wasn't some God of hate. This was a God who fights for you and treasures you.
And the consequence for that first generation's failure to believe the true story? 40 years. 40 years of wandering in the desert. An entire generation. Gone. All because they chose to believe the wrong story. And you can feel the weight of that history hanging over the people who are now listening to Moses.
But the past is the past, right? The point isn't to just dwell on failure, it's to learn from it. So now, as this new generation gets ready to finally go in, Moses gives them a new plan. And this is so important, because this isn't about mindless conquest. They're about to walk into a world that's already full of other nations, and they have to figure out how to navigate it all with wisdom. And this part is just fascinating. God gives them explicit instructions. You are not to attack your neighbors Edom, Moab, and Ammon. And why not? Because they're family, they're relatives. This shows us that God has his own history and his own covenants with these other peoples too. The plan for Israel doesn't just erase God's relationship with the rest of the world. Their path forward has to respect these other people and their lands.
So how do you overwrite a 40-year-old story of failure and fear? You have to prove it wrong with action. So Moses leads the people through what are basically a series of practice battles. They go up against real, scary armies, the exact kind of enemies their parents were terrified of. But this time they remember the lesson. They trust God as their warrior, and they win, big time. This victory builds the momentum, it builds the confidence they desperately need to finally cross that river.
And with that, everything is in place. The stage is finally set. The people have been reminded of the unique purpose of the special land, they've been forced to confront their past, and they've been given a new, true story to believe in, a story that's now been proven by actual victory. The land is waiting.
Which brings us to the final and most critical question. The people are ready, but what happens next? What kind of society, what kind of rules do you need to not just survive, but to actually thrive and be a blessing to others when you live at the crossroads of the entire world? Well, that is the exact question that the rest of the book of Deuteronomy is about to answer.